Hey guys, today I'd like to share a few recipes, and today we're going to make some hot cocoa, some mint chocolate truffles, and some almond shortbread. These recipes are gluten-free, dairy and refined sugar-free, paleo, and vegan with some small adjustments. And they're perfect for people who are trying to be a little bit more health conscious, or for people like me who are on a restricted diet and really don't have a lot of options for the family season when everything seems to be centered around food. For the recipes, I don't have one for the hot cocoa because it is made to taste. But for the other two recipes, I will include them in the link in the description box below. And without further ado, let's get into the video. So I'm starting off by making a cup of hot cocoa, and for this I like to use almond milk, but you could use whatever milk you want. And the trick to this is pouring just a little bit of milk in the bottom of your cup before putting in your cocoa powder or cacao powder, and then mixing it a lot. So you want to mix for at least 30 seconds in order for the powder to mix with the milk. And so here I'm just doing that. And once it starts to mix, it'll become kind of like a chocolate syrup, and that's when you can add other stuff to it. So I chose to add honey, but you could use whatever sweetener that you want to use. And then I also had a little bit of vanilla left in my bottle, so I just took a little bit of water and then mixed that in and poured it in. So I put in hot water, but you could use hot milk if you would like. I just can't have as much dietary fat, so I use water instead. Tastes the same to me. So here I'm just mixing it up, and I'm topping off with a little bit more almond milk, and there we go. And now we're going to start making the mint chocolate truffles, and I start out with 1 cup of pitted dates. Make sure they're pitted. I forgot to, and it was really bad. And I soak mine in hot water for about 30 minutes before because they're dried and it helps them to incorporate better. And then I'm adding in a 1/2 cup of finely chopped cacao and then 2 tablespoons of cacao powder. And I use unsweetened cacao powder. You could use cocoa powder as well. That works just the same. And now I'm adding in a tablespoon of coconut oil. And 1 pinch of salt. And I really like salt, so I usually add an extra pinch for good measure. Now I'm adding in 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I'm using the cap, but you can just use a teaspoon measure. And for the final key ingredient, I'm just adding in a splash or 2 of peppermint extract, and this is what makes it mint chocolate. But if you just want regular chocolate truffles, you can omit this. And now I've blended the mixture and it's ready to be formed into balls and then rolled in the cacao powder. In between the rolling and the forming, you can always put it in the fridge to make them a little bit harder and easier to work with, but I here just rolled them straight in the cacao. And I like to put mine into paper mini muffin liners, but you could just set them on a plate or in a container if you wish. And then here is the finished product. And now we're going to begin making our almond flour shortbread cookies. So I'm starting out with my almond flour. And then I'm going to add in some melted coconut oil, and I use refined, but you could use unrefined if you don't mind the taste of coconut in your cookies. And then I'm adding in honey. I like to use honey, but you could use maple syrup if you're vegan, or if you have a different sweetener, you could use the same amount of that. And then mixing really well to incorporate it. So you could actually just leave it at that and just bake the cookies as is, but I like to add in some other ingredients for more festive flavor. So I like to add in some salt to help bring out the sweetness, and I like to add in some spices, and so for these cookies I am making an eggnog inspired flavor with cardamom and clove and nutmeg and a little bit of vanilla. And once it's all mixed up, you can transfer it to some plastic wrap or parchment paper and form it into a log. Then roll that up and chill it in the fridge for about an hour or in the freezer for about 15 minutes. I find that the fridge works a lot better for this. And once it's done chilling, you can remove it from its wrapping and begin slicing it to put on your cookie sheet. And now we put them in the oven, and after a couple minutes, here they are done and cooled. I hope you enjoy these recipes, and leave a comment below if you try any of them out and how they work for you. Happy holidays, and wishing the best for everyone.